Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. This is a wonderful, wonderful showing for our first reading. I want to start with a reminder to all of us that we're meeting this evening on the lands of the Duwamish, Suquamish, and Muckleshoot nations and other Coast Salish peoples, past and present. And then the staff, board, and artists of Jack Straw acknowledge that we're living, creating, working, and playing on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle and the Salish Sea, and we honor them and the land itself with deep gratitude. And I feel an immense sense of gratitude just being here with you all tonight. Thanks also to our technical staff, Aisha and Daniel, making everything happen both in here and streaming out onto the internet. And to our wonderful curator, Kathleen Alcalá, for bringing these writers together. It's always a privilege to just get to know these folks and their work every year. So it's always a wonderful group of writers, and so is the case this year, as you'll be hearing. We do receive, so we have 3 different artist residency programs. The Jack Straw Writers Program is one of them. There's the Artist Support Program and the New Media Gallery. If you have a few minutes later, you can check out the installation in our gallery just out front. And all of these programs receive funds from the City of Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, For Culture, Washington State Arts Commission, NEA, Arts Fund, the Lester and Phyllis Epstein Foundation, and of course individual contributors are hugely important. I feel like we're always saying now more than ever, but here we are. So there is a thing called Give Big that's coming up. And that is a great opportunity to give to all kinds of organizations that need the help, and arts organizations are right there with everyone else. And I think hopefully the fact that you're here says that you also think that this is important work that should be supported. So whatever you can do to help out would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, so that's enough of that. So yeah, this is the 29th year of the Jack Straw Writers Program. Kathleen is our curator. She was a Jack Straw writer twice. And wonderful to have her come back in this capacity, and it's a terrific group of writers. And we have 2 more readings next Friday. The Friday after, you're welcome to come back or watch online. We would love to have you, and we'll have more writings in more readings in the second half of the year at other venues around the city and region. And then later in the year, we'll start releasing podcasts which feature interviews with the writers and recordings of the readings here. So make sure to subscribe and follow and all that stuff. So. With that, I will introduce our wonderful curator, Kathleen Alcalá, who can introduce the writers.
Good evening. Thank you for turning out tonight for these great writers. Poetry is Enchantment by former NEA chair and public poet Dana Goya stresses the oral tradition as the source of written poetry and prose. Poems were sung and acted as a collective honoring of memory and place. The Jack Straw program offers us a chance to reclaim this tradition. There's singing and crying in this collection, with traditions from as far apart as Iceland and Cambodia, the forests of Poland to the suburbs of Florida. Many of these writers are extremely accomplished, and I thank the staff at the Jack Straw Foundation for asking me to work with them. The more I consider these writers, I realize that they are survivors, either personally of extreme circumstances or historically as the inheritors of stories. We tell stories in order to survive, but also to honor those who came before us. We name names. We consider what actions enabled our ancestors to survive, and we discard those things that hindered them. We uncover old stories people have tried to cover up, and we save objects that embody story. At the same time, these stories can be a burden. A sense of social justice or inheritance of family legacy can weigh on the writers who receive these stories. They feel compelled to find a way to express them. We don't just use words to tell stories. Many of these stories are grief transformed into beauty. They reflect the exhilaration and terror of being a survivor. I sense that these writers have found joy in getting to know each other, and I hope they carry that joy out of the Jack Straw Studios and into their publishing careers. Vi Hilbert was a revered Lachute Seed storyteller who promoted active listening. A story calls for a response from the listeners. I hope these stories call to you for a response, either by hearing them out loud at one of the public readings on the Jack Straw blog or in the published anthology of their work that you'll find at the front desk. Be an active listener. Share these stories. Respond to the writers. Take action to be sure these stories continue to be told and heard. And now, our readers for tonight. Bill Hollands was born and raised in Miami, Florida, graduated from Williams College, and received his MA in English as a Dr. Herschel Smith Fellow at Cambridge University. He worked for the New York Public Library and Microsoft before becoming a high school English teacher. He lives in Seattle with his husband and their son. Having returned to poetry after a long hiatus, Bill's recent poems have appeared in such journals as the Adroit Journal, the Southern Review, Poetry Northwest, Birmingham Poetry Review, the Greensboro Review, Rattle, the Florida Review, Diagram, Boulevard, and Plume, as well as on the Slowdown podcast. A multiple Best of the Net and Pushcart nominee, Bill has been a finalist for North American Review's James Hurst Poetry Prize, Sycamore Review's Wabash Prize in Poetry, Smartish Pace's Erskine J. Poetry Prize, and New Ohio Review's Norwood Prize. He reads submissions for Poetry Northwest. His debut poetry collection, Mangrove, from Eli Editions, will be published in 2025. Asha Dore is a writer and illustrator working on a book about fawning. Bylines include the New York Times, The Cut, and Slate. She hosts Totally Biased Reviews, a literary interview podcast. Her work can be found at www.ashadore.net or on Instagram at ADJSBB. Jenny Harrington Lill is a writer, researcher, and advocate living on Mercer Island. She is an MFA candidate in nonfiction and literature at the Bennington Writers Seminars. Jenny is currently working on her debut collection of essays on love, loss, and mothering. Sigrun Susan Lane is a poet from Seattle, Washington. After a successful career in business, she returned to her initial passion to be a writer. She began writing poetry with Nelson and Beth Bentley and published poems in regional and national journals, such as the Crab Creek Review and the Seattle Review. She's won prizes for her poems from the Seattle Arts Commission and the King County Arts Commission. Sigrun has published 3 chapbooks, Little Bones and Salt from Goldfish Press, and Drive from Finishing Line Press. Salt won the Josephine Miles Award for Excellence in Poetry in 2020. Sigrun Susan is of Icelandic descent and often draws on her family's history in her poems, stories of immigrants and of the old country and its history. And now, the readers.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Great. Good. Good to see you. I'm Bill Hollands. Thank you, Levi and Kathleen. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks also to the folks online. Xanadu. I am, of course, referring to the 1980 movie musical starring Gene Kelly and Olivia Newton-John on roller skates. One wonders, as I do, why I'm writing a poem about this movie. Is it because I'm gay? After all, Xanadu often plays in gay bars, so perhaps there's a connection. John, do you remember the finale? How the still spry Jean leads the chanting skaters around the rink as Olivia croons the title song and a circus performer twirls by her neck. How it would appear on the big screen at the old Timberline during Sunday tea dance and all of us went wild. Susan Sontag says that camp finds the success in certain passionate failures. I rewatched it recently. I had forgotten how the characters roller skate in one scene, walk the next, skate again. Who knows why? And how Olivia recites, "In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree." But the main thing I had forgotten was the plot. How Olivia isn't human at all. She's Terpsichore, one of the 9 muses. And she helps the main character, an artist, find inspiration. His day job is to make copies of other people's art, but when he tries to create something new, he fails. As Olivia / Terpsichore skates around the abandoned theater, she appears, disappears, appears again, until the artist is forced to cry out, "Where are you? Where are you? I don't know where I'm supposed to look." Thank you. Thank you. So for me, that's a poem about inspiration, and maybe specifically queer inspiration. And for my Jack Straw project this year, I wanted to lean into one source of inspiration for me, and that is popular culture, like in that poem. And often for me, that means the sitcoms of my youth, 1970s sitcoms. I watched a lot of TV when I was a kid. And so it felt natural for me to write about TV shows when I wanted to write about my childhood. That was just sort of a way into it. And so this next poem I'm going to read is about the TV show Gilligan's Island, the one about the 7 castaways on the deserted island, and this specific episode, sort of semi-famous episode, where the girl next door, Mary Ann, hits her head and thinks that she is the glamorous movie star Ginger. It's called The Second Ginger Grant. You hit your head, and when you wake up, you think you're Ginger. You rehearse lines. You wear leopard skin dresses. The other castaways want you to be Mary Ann again. They don't say why. They try hypnosis, but that makes Gilligan think he's Mary Ann. They come up with a plan. They'll ask you to put on a show. The professor explains, as Ginger, she'll want to perform, but underneath, as Mary Ann, she'll know she can't. This will create a tremendous conflict in her mind, and the real world of Mary Ann will push out the dream world of Ginger, and Mary Ann will become Mary Ann again. The show begins. You wear a blue sequined dress, diamond drop earrings, a white feather boa. You sing, I want to be loved by you and nobody else but you. I want to be loved by you alone. Boop, boop, ba-doop. But you're off key. The castaways cringe, the laugh track plays, the plan is working. You forget the words, your eyes full of panic as I take it all in after school from my living room floor. Maestro, would you start the record again, please? Maybe if I just dance it, I'll be all right. You dance, but it's all wrong. You trip on the boa, fall, and hit your head. You wake up, you're Marianne. What a drag. Thank you. Thanks. So I didn't only watch TV as a child. I did read some books. And the next poem is inspired by the classic children's book, Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, if you know that one, by William Steig. And it incorporates a few lines from that book as well. I revisit my favorite children's book, and by favorite, I mean most terrifying. I had a magic pebble too, but my pebble's magic existed in my head. And my magic pebble was, in fact, a plastic bead that I stole from my brother's room and kept like a secret in a little felt box. One day, or maybe it was many days, or maybe it was many years, I also panicked and couldn't think carefully. I grasped the magic pebble in my bone-white hand and wished I were a rock. And so it came to be. My parents did not wander the village in search of me. My parents did not look at each other with great sorrow. My parents did not have a picnic on me and eat Timothy compote. I too wanted to shout, Mother, Father, I'm right here. But I didn't look like a rock. I looked like a boy. And I was not stone dumb. Words such as yes and no crept out of my mouth. Night came with many stars. Seasons occurred. Strawberry Hill grew cold, then hot, then cold again. Wolves howled on me. And if the story ends there, what then? What then? Thank you. So the next poem I'm going to read is about my son, or really it's about parenting a teenager. And some of you might recognize the setting of this one. Dick's Drive-In parking lot, 1 a.m. Or almost 1 a.m. I like to get here a little early to pick up my son from his late night shift. Always a crowd, good people watching. Festive, that's the word. Tell me you wouldn't go for a Dick's Deluxe and fries right about now. Everyone in the glow of this big orange sign wants pretty much the same thing, I think. Who cares about the moon? But the real reason I'm here is to spy on my son as he takes the orders and makes the shakes. Look at him smile and joke, completely himself, utterly at ease. At home, he doesn't like to show us his happiness, not like this. His pain either, I guess. One time when I dropped him off, a coworker greeted him with such pleasure that I thought, oh, my son is someone people are happy to see. Can we love something without wanting to possess it? I read that what a teenager really needs is for their parent to be like a potted plant. Unobtrusive, but there. I've been watered. My leaves are green. On the drive home, maybe he'll tell me a story, something funny that happened on his shift tonight. Or maybe not. But whichever it is, I'll try to leave it there in the fading warmth of that big orange sign. Thanks, everyone. I've got one more poem I'm going to read. Before I do, I wanted, Kathleen mentioned my book is coming out next month. And I've got little postcards on the table, which I don't have. Someone hold up their postcard. There it is. So please grab one. There's a link on the back for how to pre-order it. So yeah, please take one. Okay, last poem. This last poem takes place in Miami, Florida, where I grew up, and a lot of the poems in my book take place there. And it takes place at sort of a legendary, Miami legendary bookstore and newsstand and sort of everything store. It's called Al's Books and News, Miami. God, I rode there on my bike. That rust orange 10-speed, handlebars like a ram's curled horns. And there's Al, an ostrich in half-moon glasses, flannel shirt, and a wool skull cap. He kept that store cold, a dark secret, around the corner from the Army Navy and the A&P. Candy and classics, poetry next to porn. Al went to the back to get my Call of the Wild, and I slipped a copy of Blue Boy into Life magazine. My legs shook. And suddenly there's Al, who said, "How about some poetry instead?" Just kidding. That's not what Al said. But here's the great thing about poetry. You can change the ending. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming here, and thanks for hosting this. This is so awesome. I'm Asha Dore, and I have a lot of content warnings for this piece. It's not graphic, but there is definitely violence and domestic violence and mentions of things like that, just so that y'all can know that and keep yourself safe if you need to. I'm working on a project called Gravity about the intersection of true crime in my real family. So, okay. True crime is the most popular genre in audio-video media today. A recent study showed that 42 people in the United States, age 13 and up, listen to true crime podcasts, and about 60% watch true crime series, and at least 30 murder TV shows were released in 2024. I think it's fair to say that to us, the words crime and criminal are kind of sexy, or at least fascinating. In 2025, if you ask most people to imagine the exact way that a bullet slams through a body, they will have a reference image, or 200. We can't accurately measure our desensitization to the destruction of bodies and the crimes that cause it. But my guess is that if you traveled back to the 1960s and exposed someone to even one episode of Dexter, they would be actually traumatized. Dr. Nicole LaPera, a psychologist who specializes in trauma and recovering from it, describes our commitment to crime entertainment as an emotional addiction. Unconsciously, we need hits of strong emotion to feel alive, she writes. She describes our daily lives as addiction cycles. We wake up, we drink our coffee, we go to work, and we cycle through the stress and resolution over and over and over until our adrenaline is spent, and then we go home and turn on a crime TV show. And we ride the wave of drama until we're ready to fall asleep. But what happens to the body when the crime is actually true for you? For your body, or at least in your family? What happens when you've actually seen and held a destroyed body? What if that body belonged to somebody that you love? When I was 15 years old, my friend Jessie died. But I didn't read the police report until last year. In the days after she died, rumors spread around her about her death. This was the early 2000s on the Florida Panhandle, the end of the Bible Belt, basically Alabama with a beach. Jessie was the first girl on the football team, which meant that she was extremely unpopular. And after she died, rumors spread through the high school. It was a hate crime, or it was suicide, or it was domestic violence. We didn't know very many actual facts except that on the morning before Jessie died, her family consisted of Jessie, her 6-year-old sister, her mother, and her stepfather. But by the end of the night, only the little sister survived. For 20 years, I told myself that I didn't read the police report because I didn't believe that knowing what happened was important. I liked the idea of remembering Jessie as she was, all sassy and buff, sitting with me at old picnic tables covered in bird poop and talking smack about the seagulls. I didn't want to know, because the most common rumor was that Jessie died trying to protect her mom from her stepdad. I didn't want to know who died first. I didn't want to imagine a 15-year-old girl trying to stand up for her mother and dying, knowing that she failed. I didn't want to know because I'm one of the very few middle-aged white ladies in this country who does not enjoy true crime or fake crime or any crime at all. I do not want to see bodies torn apart on my screen because I have seen too many bodies torn apart in my real life. And when you see that kind of destruction, it's impossible to avoid the slap of how precious and vulnerable our real bodies really are. Last year, I started to research my family's history, and I found a legacy of low-class crimes, like Jessie's murder. For 200 years, the men in my family dealt and smuggled drugs throughout the Sunshine State. They committed petty offenses and almost murdered people. My dad was the only person who actually made it big for a time, and by that I mean his crimes were high class or cool, when he smuggled drugs for a Colombian cartel for 2 decades before I was born. All that ended in 1984 when he shot up his brother Stanley's house after Stanley's wife shot him in the back of his head as he knelt to pick up a box of records on his way to leave her. Dad shot up the house to scare his sister-in-law, of course, and he was caught. And with all that heat, the cartel ghosted him, and poverty sucked him back down. 2 years later, and 2 weeks before I was born, Dad's sister, Joanne, died after her husband beat the shit out of her and then stood over her while she had a heart attack and stared at her until she stopped breathing. Remembering the bullet holes they painted over on the face of Stanley's house, my grandparents, my mama and papa, rushed to tell Joanne's husband to get out of town before Dad found out. But they didn't need to. Joanne was Dad's favorite. My mom was 9 months pregnant and miserable in North Florida heat with no air conditioner. And Stanley, formerly an A-plus student and chess nerd, could barely watch the news without falling asleep on account of his severe TBI. Violence had cost my father his brother, his nephew, his sister, and his sex, drugs, and rock and roll adventure. Violence had actually scared him straight. Besides, he told me, the same year Jesse died, there is not and never will be a way to bring back the dead. 2 months after he said that, Dad died too. A year later, my mother was arrested for attempted murder. Her arrest didn't have anything to do with his death or the way that she corroded his motorcycle brake lines or the way she called around pretending that they were still married, canceling his doctor appointments and liver treatments that very likely would have kept him alive. Her arrest didn't focus on the cocaine-laced joint that she shared with my 12-year-old brother, or the hard drugs and alcohol that she bought for the 9th graders that I went to school with, or the way she'd drive over 100 miles per hour when she was upset with one of us because she believed that we did not really love her. She was arrested because she swung one of my papaws, old wrenches, 23 times at her hellfire and damnation Pentecostal boyfriend, Ed, and he actually reported it. He was from Ohio. Of course he did, you might think, because you, like Ed, are probably not born from the body of a long line of working poor Florida men, one maladaptive decision away from becoming the next headline. The reason that we know anything about those men or the relentless onslaught of weird Florida crime is because public record laws in that state allow anyone to see the details of police reports and arrest records. All you have to do is ask. So I asked about Jesse's. I received them through email, sitting on my bed in Seattle with my lazy pit bull snoring on top of my feet, safe and chill, the way so many of us watch TV at the end of our workday. I won't tell you the details because nobody should know all of those details. I believe that the precise way that our bodies are destroyed are private. Jesse was my friend, and I don't think that even I should know the details. I don't even have a very good reason for requesting the records. Maybe it's because my oldest child turned 15, and I'm struggling to reconcile the absolute fact that he is still so young, a baby. But when I was his age, I believed myself bigger, like I could expand into the space my dad left behind and keep my brother and mom fed and alive. Or maybe I ordered the records because the conversation about gender and sports have become so crucial, and Jesse's stories of locker room shunning are so dissonant from today's stories of locker room shunning, and I just want to ask her what she thinks. Or maybe I ordered the records because I finally cut off contact with my mother after years of attempted murders and hostility and substance use, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could both survive her violence and face the fact that Jessie didn't survive her stepfathers. Really, knowing the details was self-serving. Jessie doesn't get to benefit from my opinion of hers, or your opinion, or this story at all. She doesn't get to know if she's a martyr or just completely disappeared. And after I read the report, I realized that I don't like true crime because it so often doesn't help us prevent the next time. It's just about sensation, addiction, drama. And I promised myself that if I told this story, or the story of any violence in my family, that I would try to make it mean something bigger. So I won't put the pictures of her body in your mind except for this. When she was found, she was crouching with her hand over her face, her mother did die first, and she didn't get to know whether her sister survived. I can't know anything about anybody's thoughts that night, but I know one thing for damn sure, which is that guy looked at her before he shot her. And any creature who saw another creature crouch like that would register fear. And I think that registering makes angry or desperate people feel powerful, like predators. I think it only works like that because it happens on the inside. We don't say it out loud. And we don't talk about that part of the solution. Like maybe if we could just get better at registering each other's fear and saying it out loud. Like, you're afraid of me. Like right now, I'm the bad guy, and I don't have to be. But of course, there's no climax or resolution in that. The gun has to go off, right? That's what we've been told. That's the resolution that we know and that we see over and over. I'm also just a little bit jealous of people who like true crime. I imagine that they live in this fairy tale where they've never been or seen someone crouch like that, not even like a little bit. But that's my mythology. It makes me feel safe. We've all been there, one way or the other. Thanks.
Hi, audience. Thank you for being here. My name is Jenny Harrington Lill, and I want to thank our Jack Straw curator, Kathleen, for the honor of selecting us. Honestly, I feel a little starstruck to be among the 2025 fellows. Thank you, Levi, and the Jack Straw staff. We've had amazing vocal coaching by Sunam Ellis and performance coaching by Damon Arundel, and our sound engineers are wonderful. So I'm a creative nonfiction writer. In the anthology, you'll find an essay examining compatibility of a griefed mind and a growth set mind. Tonight I'm reading something new, the beginning third of a work, and I'm using pseudonyms for some of the characters in this essay. But before I begin, I've been really desperate to read something brand new. So I'm going to read from my journal today. May 7th is 7 years since my child's death. 7. He was 8. He would say, why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. The Sains are slipping. Who will remember the Sains, if not his mother? And I read that in part because I learned about Jack Straw through him when he was in treatment over at Seattle Children's. He worked with their artist in residence, their writer's residency program, and wrote several poems. So after his death, I received an envelope in the mail, and there was this book. And inside there was a poem from him that I've never read. And I've never read it until right now. You and Lil, age 8, ode to my video game. It's challenging fun. It takes my mind off things. When I play, I feel calm, ease. I'm playing Mario. He wears blue trousers and has a red hat. He's fast. Mario would probably be fun if you met him. He has a ship he goes to other kingdoms, like Snow Kingdom. He finds power moves. He gets coins. He goes to new levels. He's going through the kingdoms to try to rescue Princess Peach. Playing my video game makes me feel as calm as reading. And I like reading a lot.
How's everybody doing? You've been sitting for quite a while. Do you want to stand up and wiggle? Okay, all right. So I'm Sigrun Susan Lane, and I'm going to round out the program for the evening. And I would prefer it if you'd hold the applause till the end. I'm going to read a suite. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm going to read a suite of Icelandic poems. And I'm going to begin with a poem called When Mother Took Her Hair Down. When Mother took her hair down in order to wash it, we gathered round to see it fall nearly to her knees. The strangeness of it. She was an ancient sorceress. Her hair fell in wondrous waves. We imagined what could live there in the dark curtains. Small animals, fairies perhaps, ladders for little people who built homes in her tresses. We played peekaboo through the drapery until she shooed us so she could wash it. Then she sat before the fireplace to let it dry, bent forward so it cascaded. We could see the fire through it as she brushed. We huddled close to her feet for warmth. She brushed and brushed. We asked to help, but our small hands did not have the strength to handle its thickness, its body. Then she gathered it up in that funny way of hers. She held a strand in her mouth, fixed two thick braids, and wound them round in that style of her Icelandic mother. She looked old-fashioned and regal, like a visitor from a faraway country where nature is cruel and a woman is prized for the hair on her head. The next poem is called The Ladies' Ining. And the Ladies' Ining was organized around this little church that I was a member of. This was the Calvary Lutheran Church, the Icelandic church, which was on a drafty corner in Ballard. It's no longer there, but it was a white wooden church that stood there for many years. And this is The Ladies' Ining. Stood in rows on the church steps. In the photo, my two aunts, somber-suited in their Sunday best, smile apple-cheeked and optimistic. No one else is young or cheerful. This is the Icelandic Lutheran Ladies' Society. These are the keepers of the kingdom on earth, a drab frame church on a chilly corner in Ballard. Grandmother sits stiffly in the front row, her hands, clothed in Sunday gloves, rest on her thick pocketbook. In the New World, these women worshipped with rag and wax and dreamed of angels, as they polished the pulpit, the oak altar, the minister's high chair. On their knees they waxed the creaking wood floor, then washed and buffed the altar cloths, bowed and buffed the cross and candelabra, wiped dust devils from under pews, while Jesus, blue-eyed as any son of Eric, smiled like a movie star from his gold frame. These churchgoers bought garden iris, peonies, roses, and lilac, lit candles, and over the bright bouquets. Pulling gloves over work-hard hands, the Eining ladies sang choruses of old Bach in their new English. The air was thick with alleluias, the smell of floor wax and flowers, the scent of heaven. The next poem is called Cold Comfort. And this poem is set in Iceland. Now we're going to Iceland. Icelanders carry the weight of centuries in their tongues. This old language fitted for horses and sheep, for fishing and spinning wool. The words sing in the ear a kind of light rhythm, like the cadence of the tolt, the gait of the Icelandic horse. And in speech, flourishes of R's roll through like rune stones, placed to show the way, rhythms of the ancient alliterative rimmer. In a quick uptake of breath, ya, ya, breathed in, head nodding, affirming their land is beautiful, but stingy with its comforts. Wind blows ashfall down from volcanoes. Polar bears drift in from Greenland on ice floes. Dark all day in midwinter. Still, the sun is high at midsummer. Rivers run thick with salmon. Water boils from the earth in bubbling hot pots, tempered into hot pools where everyone meets to warm their bones, gaze at snow-topped mountains through the steam, wonder when the next one will blow. This poem is called Learning Icelandic. And believe me, I have tried to learn Icelandic many times. I've studied it, and I managed to understand a little, speak even fewer words. And the epigram for this poem is, imagine you come to an island in the Mediterranean where everyone spoke Latin. And that's what an Icelandic guide said. Because Icelandic is 9th century Norse. Okay, it's the language is preserved there as 9th century Norse. An Icelander can pick up, even today, a document written in 9th century Norse and can read it. That's how little, in fact, the language has changed. And I'm going to give you a little Icelandic lesson. There's Icelandic words here for you to learn. I'm going to use the word huldafolk, little people, live in moss, and mister, that's mist, okay. Hestar, that's the word for horse. And I'm going to use the word kinder, that's sheep. I'm going to refer to the husmother, and that's the housewife. And the bondi is the farmer. Okay, so listen for those words. You will hear them in context, so they're going to fall right into place, and you're going to do just fine. Okay, so this poem is called Learning Icelandic. In this language, we believe in ghosts that scratch at the window, blow out the candle, frighten the cat. We listen for the huldafolk that hide in the knobby lava, live in moss and mister. They tease the dog, torment the sheep. Now they scramble across my open book. Their mischief sticks burrs to my tongue. Words thicken in my mouth, cling to the page dark and thorny, shift shape for gender, case, inflection. Letters, bird tracks in the snow. A witch lives in the rock. Learn her name. And the names of the two ravens, Hunan and Munan, that give Odin the gift of speech. They fly over the earth, sit on his shoulders, whisper in his ears all he would know of the world, of the Hestar and Kinder that graze on the croft, the house mother at her wheel, spinning the coarse threads out, how the Bondi looked out at the sea to the fishermen in their small boats, their sails set into a bitter wind. See, you got right through that poem. Icelandic and all. You did just great. Okay, Iceland has got all kinds of very interesting holidays because they keep the Old Norse calendar as well as the contemporary calendar. So in April, I wrote this poem, April 24th, which was in Iceland the first day of summer. Okay, so it's called The First Day of Summer. Today, April 24th, Sumardaginn fyrster, is the first day of summer in Iceland, according to the Old Norse calendar. Today, a band will march down Lagervegur Street, the Icelandic flag flying in front, its blue field, red and white cross fluttering in a chilly wind. There will be parties and gifts to celebrate those who once again have survived winter. The national news will announce that the golden plover, the beloved harbinger of summer, has been sighted at Eyrarbakki on the south coast, the birds busy nesting in the heather. They bring with them hope for light and warmer weather. Now the days begin to lengthen to midsummer, when the sun will not rest, when Icelanders play midnight baseball and golf until 5 in the morning, sleep for a few hours and begin at 7 in the evening, sleep for a few hours and start a new day. I remember a dinner that began at 7 in the evening and ended at nearly 12. The sun still shining. Who had any idea of time? Walking home, I saw a couple tending their garden. They wished me gleðileg sommer. She, blonde and full-breasted, in her white bra, white panties, on her knees in the flower garden, digging among the pansies. He in his wide front briefs, mowing the lawn. I just love my family. This poem is called The Codfish. The codfish. She said the codfish was to blame when the infant was born with that thick shock of black hair, foreign among the blonde children of Eric. The codfish, the pale fish that fed the nations. French fishermen followed it to faraway Icelandic waters. I don't know which of my great-grandmothers fell into the arms of a French fisherman, or if she loved him. One found his way to her bed sometime in the late 18th century, I figure. That's how these things happen. I think he was handsome. In the picture, my black-haired grandfather, Peter Ole, sits with his French horn. I inherited his books of poetry and one of the landscapes he painted. I know nothing about my distant grandmother who bore that dark-haired child. She enlivened the gene pool in a country where everyone is related. In Iceland, it's not unusual to bear a child out of marriage. She probably just got up and got going, like the boats that follow the fish. Maybe she looked forward to the next run of cod. And my last poem is about one of my cousins, Gunnar Jonsson, and it's called More Icelandic Than the National Coat of Arms and the Flag. And that's a quote from Andri Magnusson, who wrote that in the Reykjavik Grapevine, a newspaper in Reykjavik that was quoted in 2004. Gunnar Jonsson. Gunnar Jonsson came back from America in 1962 with a recipe for mayonnaise. That year, Gunnar's mayonnaise became all the rage in Reykjavik. With their mouths full of mayonnaise, the people of Iceland finally experienced bliss. Women spread it thick on their loaves to give to their children what they had always lacked: the oil, the egg, the lemon. At the table, a brauðterta, a rich layered sandwich cake of shrimp, egg, and mayo with piped rosettes. Mayo was its magic. They smeared it on sandwiches, on fries, and in their hair. Now Gunnar's in every refrigerator in Iceland. Had Andy Warhol been Icelandic, he would have painted Gunnar's tubs. If Jeff Koons were an Icelander, he would have sculpted a giant replica of a Gunnar's tub and set it alongside Highway 1. It would have been considered the most precious work of art in Icelandic history. That concludes our reading. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. Feel free to mingle and
Same place, same time.
see you next Friday. Thank you.